couple of minutes to chat with me.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, obviously, those of us who follow you, we know that you've had quite a journey over the last decade. Since you and I were actually colleagues at ING, would you just kind of summarize your career, your health, your family? What's happened with you? What's going on now?
Yeah, it's funny, and I'll make it a short version of it, but you often learn the greatest lessons in life at the deepest and darkest of times. You're given this new perspective on things, and you could understand how important it is to live in the moment and appreciate the now. Unfortunately, that often happens after going through difficulties. We think we're Teflon. We think nothing could affect us. And I was very fortunate that I grew up in the financial services industry. My father was a financial advisor.
Right.
And when I graduated from the University of Delaware in 1996, I remember my dad walking on the football field right at graduation with my mom, and Maya Angelou was giving her beautiful speech. And my dad says, so what do you want to do now, buddy? I go, it's easy, Dad. I'm going to be a financial advisor. I'm going to join your firm. And in my father's thick Bronx accent, I will clean my language up here, but he said there was no bleeping way I was joining his firm. He told me, you can go out, get licensed, figure it out, come back and talk to me in a few years. And I was angry and I was mad. But he was giving me one of the greatest lessons in life. Go earn it. There's no free lunches. And if it became a calling, if it became a passion, it's something that we could do. So I started wholesaling. And that's what you did as well too, Chris. I went to get licensed like every other financial advisor and take these lessons with me. The lessons of, if you don't believe in the product, don't sell it. You lose the battle to win the war to create real relationships. And that's what people buy. They buy people. Number two was to practice everything you preach. Everything you talk about, you do. Otherwise, you're lying to someone. And the third component was be honest. And I remember my dad having that talk with me. He said, if you do those three things and take your work ethic, great things are going to happen. And so I took that because what I learned was the lessons that my dad gave me as a financial advisor made no sense to me at a young age. My dad was an advisor, my mom a teacher. They put these little seeds inside of me that I didn't get them, but they would blossom later. And as I started my career, I understood the real value of a financial advisor, which is why having medical benefits incorporated with them is an essential component. The job of the advisor is to be there when things are bad, to give families some type of good news at difficult times, to let them know the planning was done prior to the negative, because people want life insurance when they can't get it. They want long-term care when they can't get it. They want some type of financial planning after they lose 30%. The reality is financial planning is not about investments. It's about taking all the things that could affect the family greatly during difficult times and making sure there's a plan in place prior. And that's something I lived with and I stuck to. And everything I talked about, I did. And when I was diagnosed with brain cancer at 39 years old, I remember laying there and having retrospective on my life and starting to cry and trying to wonder why me. I got 3 kids. Everything in my life has been so great. I'm Teflon, exercise, all this. And I remember going through my iPad with my father. My will was done. My life insurance was done. Everything I ever talked about, I did. And what it allowed me to do was focus on the fight at hand with no regret, no resentment. I knew my family would be taken care of. It doesn't matter how much wealth you have. It's the basics of planning, because I did everything I talked about. And that was the first time in my life I ever saw my dad break down and cry. And what it makes you realize is financial and wellness planning, however you want to position it, it's not about the rates of return on your investments. It's about the digging in and combining wealth and health together to create something that protects people at the deepest and darkest of times.
Wow. That's a story, Matt. One of the things that I just heard you say is being there when they need it, when times are bad. And, when I partnered up with my partner, who's a 45-year veteran in the Medicare world, and we started our firm, Medigap Plans of America, our real goal, our real inspiration was to bring together the health insurance planning, the Medicare planning, and bring that into the forefront of the financial planning and retirement planning process. Because in all of my years wholesaling, the one thing that I found is that I think financial advisors, even the greatest ones, some of them, they're just missing that opportunity. They're missing that opportunity to talk about the one thing that I think is potentially the most important thing to somebody when they're making that transition and their life is changing and they're going from working to retirement. And they're trying to figure out, well, how do I make sure that I'm going to have my health insurance covered, my Medicare coverage? And I think the part that financial advisors miss is that uh, the 401k rollover, that's not the primary concern of somebody when when they're retiring. That's secondary to their health insurance. And my goal, as I said, is to get that story out to people to help them build a deeper relationship, whether it's taking on Medicare as themselves and helping their client with it, or getting on the same side with their client and sitting across the table from somebody like myself as a Medicare professional to help them understand that. And it's something that I think the industry is really, really lacking.
Well, Chris, I'll throw one other point at you too. And this is something that we should be getting out to all the financial advisors that are out there, whether it's their webinars or however it's going to be, is that the odds of someone keeping the assets when they pass down are,
Yes.
believe it or not, very unlikely. Every financial advisor wants to say, oh, we keep all the assets. The numbers are overwhelming in the Journal of Financial Planning that 70% of women within 1 year of their husband dying change financial advisors, 97% of children in the 1 year of both parents being gone change financial advisors. If you were the point person who was able to help matriculate all the proper information to the beneficiaries because you had a relationship with them, and that all the health planning was already taken care of, and you're able to preserve assets for them to take, you have massively increased your ability to maintain those assets. So you're actually putting yourself at a disposition to being able to keep the assets that pass through the generations by not doing this. I think these need to be incorporated. And I think the future of financial planning is going to be less on the investment side and more on the overall, like I mentioned, wealth and health combination side together. And that's something you don't want to get on that boat after it's already taken off. You want to be on it before it takes off. And you want to be a trendsetter of something like that. And to miss out on that, I would rather explain that to someone and have them say no and be able to show their children that I presented this when they were healthy, as opposed to the opposite of someone going, why didn't you do this? And that's the opportunity.
Wow. Yeah, Matt, that makes me feel like I'm doing good work. I've made a good decision in my transition here. So I appreciate it. I don't want to take too much of your time, Matt, but I guess the one question that I really want to ask you is,
Yeah.
when's the next book coming?
It's funny. It's a great question. It's a question I get often. That book, first book I wrote, was pure it was pure for me. It's pure emotion. I remember the day it came out. It came out on March 23rd, 2018. And writing became a catharsis for me. For all the optimism I have, perspective, for all the people who follow and listen to all the stuff, you're going to be pushing negative stuff down into your belly. You just are. You got to find an outlet for it. And mine became writing. I don't know why. I never wrote before that, but it did. So I remember on March 23rd, 2018, I called my mom. I go, hey, Ma, the book's coming out tonight.
Yeah.
And this was her exact line. You know, no one's ever going to read it, right? I go, oh, God, no. Who cares? Who cares about me? She goes, but you're going to put 3 copies in your safe. And when your kids are old enough, they'll be able to read what really happened. I said, I couldn't agree with you more. And then we became a bestseller in 4 different categories a week later. But the reason that I bring this up and the reason that I think it's done so well is there was no marketing. There was no game plan. It was raw and it was real. And you find that that's what people want. And that's one of the things I speak a lot for people on your side of the fence and my side of the fence, to attract people. They don't want to hear about data. They don't want to hear about investments. They don't want to hear about the costs of nursing homes. They want a story they can relate to, that they realize why they should plan, as opposed to someone pitching the product to them. And that's something I think we haven't scratched the surface on yet.
I agree. 100%. Nailed it. I guess that's why you've been so good at what you do all these years. So with that, Matt,
I appreciate that.
I'm going to let you go. I'm probably keeping you from playtime with your kids.
Baseball's coming up. We still got another hour.
All right. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And if there's ever anything I can do to repay this favor, just please let me know.
It's absolutely my pleasure, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you.